when you come to this channel, when you come to Rose and Honey, because I have a very clear goal in mind of what I want, and I know a few things, but ultimately I don't know what I'm doing.
Turns out this statement is far more true than I want it to be. Hey honeys and beloveds, welcome back to the Rose and Honey homestead. Originally, this video was supposed to be simple, short, sweet, showing you how to start some seeds in containers. But as it turns out, I still have many more things to learn. So instead, we are revamping, and this video is now all about the do's and don'ts for starting seeds in containers. My inner perfectionist is screaming, "Are you crazy? Don't seem like you don't know what you're doing. Go ahead, delete it, or talk about something else." But I am committed to showing you all my mess ups so you are less intimidated about jumping in there and doing your own at-home garden projects.
It's okay, so we get to learn together.
Look at this eager soul here. So confident, so hopeful, so optimistic, so entirely clueless. So I do want to say that a lot of the things that failed with planting seeds in containers this year are not entirely my fault. As it turns out, around my entire property, we are having an issue with roly-polies this year. They are out of control. I do not understand why, and I'm currently in the process of doing my research to figure out what I can do to organically tame them and keep them from eating all of my seeds. They seem to only want to go for seeds and seedlings. When I was planting the beans to go around my three sisters' crop, the corn was at its height that it should be for planting the beans. They were actually digging up the pole beans and peas, pushing them up to the surface and just completely devouring them. So I do not doubt for 1 second that most of the things in these containers were lost to roly-poly bugs. And speaking of predators of vegetation, I can always rely on my good old standby friends, the deer, to come in, which is exactly what they did. They enjoyed the peppermint sticks that were coming up and doing beautifully, and there's absolutely no green on them. They very well are probably completely done, but I'm leaving them where they are right now. We'll see. Maybe we'll luck out and get a couple of them. The good thing is that I mostly just have these around for pollinators, and I do have other pollinator flowers and plants in the garden, so I wasn't dependent on them, but nonetheless, I'm still quite upset about it. Everything else that went wrong was entirely me. I'm just taking the L, and it's just a part of learning about my new microclimate. Word of the day is microclimate. This refers to the conditions of your home that affect your planting within the planting zone that you are in. Prior to the start of this season and a huge renovation for the yard, which included removing 3 large trees, I had tons and tons of shade, which created its own challenges, and now I have new challenges, being that I have full sun throughout 90% of my backyard throughout the day. But we're here to learn, make mistakes, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the do's and don'ts I have learned for starting seeds in containers. Do organize your seeds. There are a lot of different ways that you can go about organizing your seeds. However, I highly recommend referring to not just your growing zone, but also your microclimate to see how best to organize your seeds. So for me, this looks like looking at the growing conditions of each seed variety. Herbs need shade or cool weather crops, what time of year they need to be planted, if I'm going to be doing succession planting. A lot of different factors can go into this, but if you organize your seeds, you're more likely to have success in knowing what they need. Do recycle containers and old soil. If your soil is older or has been used and is potentially depleted, you may have to add back some nutrients to it, but don't use this. Honeys, do not water your baby seeds with plant food. I knew this going in. I don't know what I was doing, but it's just too harsh. You have to wait for the plants to get established a little bit. And so while it's not a guarantee that they will absolutely fail if you water them with plant food, better safe than sorry. They just don't need all that. Good, healthy, balanced soil and water. I also want to add in that to replenish your soil, stick to organic, vegetarian based starters. In other words, no animal manure. This was the first year I tried the black cow manure. I've heard wonderful things about it. And while that's probably true, I'm only finding that on some of the more established plants, not when I'm starting seeds. I'm going to go ahead and lump this into the same category as the plant food. In my experience, it's just too harsh. Save it for later once plants have gotten to their more flush seedling state, so probably at least 2 to 3 inches tall. You see all that joyful, free-handed nonsense? Like a toddler playing in flour? Don't do this. Water, yes. Plant food water, no. Do follow the instructions on the back of your seed packet. That's it. That's the tip. Do use more seeds than you think you will need. It's inevitable. Something's going to happen. Something's going to go wrong. Some of them aren't going to germinate. So it's okay. Be heavy-handed, and you can always thin them later. If you're interested in learning how to thin seedlings once they're already in the garden, leave a comment and I will absolutely do a video. My personal method for sowing seeds is to put all of my seeds on the surface of the soil first. I also do this with starter plants. And then once I have it laid out where I need it to go, or I know exactly how many seeds are going to go into my soil medium, then I go ahead and cover it up or plant them. It just helps me keep track of everything easier. Do make labels for your seeds. Keep in mind the effects of weathering when you are considering your labels. You can keep it simple with just little plastic tabs and Sharpie, which holds up pretty well. Or you can get more creative, like using acrylic paint on the outside of your terracotta pots. I will be playing around with some cute, fun labeling ideas this season. So if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe. Turn on your cute little bell notification so you can be among the first to know when that video comes out. Don't leave your containers in full sun. This may be a flexible rule depending on what zone you're in. For me, I'm in zone 8A, and it just gets too hot. The base and the roots, they get too hot and everything struggles. Even the seeds and things that ended up germinating from this group, they're just strained under all of the heat because their roots aren't cool enough. So I would say if you can only plant in containers and you have full sun, get creative about ways to make sure they get partial shade throughout the day, or to cover up the base of the pots so that way the roots stay cool. The exception to this rule that I'm finding is, one, the depth of the container, like this big tub that I have here, or the large above ground container I'm using for my strawberries. Those are doing fine. And also, these are potatoes, so they're coming from roots, and things like my hyacinths, other things that are from bulbs seem to be doing just fine. It's only the seeds that seem to struggle being in the containers and not having their bases insulated. So, but the potatoes are doing great. And if you haven't checked out the potato container video, cardboard versus plastic, that will be linked at the end of this video or in the description below. Don't use old seeds. Seeds do start to decrease in their germination percentage over time. While I knew this going in, I also knew that typically you can get about 2 to 3 years and still get a pretty decent germination rate on your seeds. But what I'm finding doing this from year to year is that Mother Nature just doesn't work that way. She doesn't hoard seeds, and neither should we. So do your absolute best to buy your seeds, plant them that year, harvest seeds from your crop if you can, and plant them the very next season for your best results. And finally, honeys and beloveds, don't give up. There are bumps in the road, there's hiccups, and sometimes full-fledged disasters. Things don't always work out the way we plan, but I can tell you one thing. Of all the things I feel like have stolen time from me or have been a waste of time, the time I've spent in the garden is not one of them. It's rewarding, no matter what comes out of it. To be connected to the earth, to the sky, to our ancestral medicines, to plants, is its own reward. So keep following, like, subscribe, share with your people, keep planting, and of course, grow in peace. And of course, a garden update would not be complete without showing you where the deer have come and done their destruction. These are my balsam peppermint sticks. They were doing beautifully, and now they've been eviscerated. They actually pulled this one up by the root. So, you know, I'm really sick of them. I've just had it. We're gonna bury it, and I don't even know. Let's see.